This week, I'm working backwards. Let me explain. Usually, I start my week out, come out my back door, pull out my phone, say something about what I'm going to do this week, and then get to work. Well, this week, I had the time and the motivation, and I decided it's time we get these doors done. So I just went straight to work, and I'm talking to you now at the end of the week when the work is done. So the good news is, the doors are done. The less good news is it was a lot of welding and grinding, which doesn't make for great cinema. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to montage the work and then come back after and we'll talk about it. And if you see anything that I did that you're like, why did you do it that way? Leave a comment. Go ahead and ask. I reply to all the comments. I will gladly explain to you why I did anything that I did. Let's get to work. Getting right into it today. This is our problem, and that's our solution. So first thing I did was use my pieces to come and make templates onto the door so I knew where to cut. As you can see, I'm showing you all 4 parts at the same time. There's a lot to cover. I have enough footage that I can make an individual video on each piece. So let me know in the comments if that's something you'd like to see. If there's an interest, I'll make individual videos for each section to include the holes on the front. Here I'm using my angle grinder with a thin cutting disc to remove the bad sheet metal. Anybody ever take your cap off your Sharpie, put it down somewhere, and then don't know where you put it down? Yep, this is how I spend 90% of my time. I pretty much use whatever tool it takes to get the bad sheet metal out. I did end up having to drill out some spot welds, and although it didn't make the final cut, I did come back and re-weld the spot welds in approximately the same places they were once I put the new sheet metal in. With the bad metal out, I came back with my stone grinder and my electric rotary tool to clean up the edges. This rotary tool was probably the first tool I ever bought for myself, about 20 years ago. Hey, if this still works, why replace it? Once I finished trimming the door, I had to cut the new pieces to fit. You may notice that I changed the plan a little from when I started this a few weeks ago. After looking it over again, I realized that I was going to cut out a lot of good sheet metal and make things harder than they needed to be. So I trimmed what I needed trimmed, and I only used what I needed to use. It's good to have a plan, but it's also good to be flexible with it. After everything was trimmed, I made sure it all fit. This was probably the most time-consuming part. I put the piece in, find where it needs to be adjusted, went to the bench grinder, put the piece back in, wash, rinse, repeat until it fit correctly. I had to have repeated this step 10 times for each piece.
After making sure the pieces fit, I hit all the exposed surfaces with a wire brush to knock off as much rust as I could. Afterwards, I taped the holes and hit the inside of the door with rust converter primer. I was very careful about where I sprayed the primer because this is not the same thing as welding primer, so any surface that was going to be welded did not get sprayed. I did want to make sure I hit these areas though, because once the sheet metal is welded back on, there's no good way of getting back in to spray it, and these doors obviously collect water, so I wanted to make sure I had a little extra protection. Once I was all done with the welding, I did come back and spray the rest of the inside of the door. I did not film this though. Now that all the prep is done, it's time to weld. As I've said in a previous video, I'm not a good welder, but I have gotten better. This is thin sheet metal though, and I did burn through it a couple of places. But overall, I'm satisfied with how it came out. I would like to say I have a lot of respect for those who do this professionally. Fab work and welding can be tedious and requires a lot of patience. So if you're doing this professionally, my hat's off to you. I started by just tacking the pieces in place and using a body hammer to help keep the shape. Once the pieces were all tacked in, I went back in and welded them down. You'll notice a few gaps. I came back at the end and cut pieces to fit and fill these in. I didn't add it to the video to save time. This could have easily been a 40-minute video. Here's the bottom all put together, and the top all filled in. I didn't include the welding of the top because I did that in my passenger door video a few weeks ago. Again, if you are interested in seeing that, leave a comment and let me know. And with all the welding done, it's time to grind. It took me about 2 hours to shape everything out. I still need to go back and fill all the welds with fiberglass reinforced body filler to prevent rust issues in the future, but that'd be for another day. And here's the finished door all cleaned up. Of course I can't end the video here. Let's install these doors.
So man, it's been a long week, and I can't even begin to tell you how satisfying it is to put the doors on this thing. This thing is now starting to look like a car again. I can tell you, I had it pushed out front and I was walking back here and I looked at it and I couldn't help but smile just because it looks so good right now compared to what it did when I first got it. So welding up those doors was somewhat of a new experience for me. I haven't ever gotten the opportunity to do fabrication like that. It was a great time doing it, and I absolutely had a blast. But man, it took way longer than I expected. And it wasn't because of anything on the project. But I'm glad it's done. I still have some welding to do, and inevitably the doors have to come back off. But for now, this is a milestone for me. We're far from finish. This is a marathon, not a sprint. But it's good to have those little mile marks to let you know you're progressing. So thanks for watching. You have a good weekend, and we'll see you next Friday. Found it.